Good morning, and thank you everybody for joining this webinar today, hosted by Controlled Products. I'd like to let you know that this meeting is being recorded. If you choose not to stay on the call here, we will have a recording available for you later after the meeting. So if you don't feel comfortable staying on the call, please reach out and we'll get you a recording of that. During the presentation today, if you want to use the Q&A feature, we will be monitoring that and we'll look for your questions and then bring those up as we're going through the different topics today. So today, we're going to learn a little bit more about Cypress Integration Solutions. Cypress has been a long time supplier partner of Controlled Products. We've worked together on many custom solutions to be able to support our customers. A lot of their products we're using with our long-range RFID applications. But Cypress is a leader in the design and manufacturing of electronic security products, and they really specialize in unique solutions in the logical and physical access control environments. With that said, I'd like to introduce you to Jacob Leibroy, Senior Sales and Development Manager at Cypress. So Jacob, welcome,
Thank you,
and
Butch.
thanks for being here today.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. So I'm with Cypress. I'm the sales manager. And so we make access control accessories that go between the card reader and the panel to solve different challenges or problems you might encounter on access control installations. So who are we? Butch already did the pleasure of introducing me. We're a reliable, 42-year manufacturer in the access control industry, and we make our products. Our products are geared towards saving you cost, labor on jobs, and also making certain projects you might not think possible be possible. Our products are made in the USA and we're backed by our strong warranty. And all of our staff is located here in Michigan. So we have our, easy to reach in-house technical support, which you can reach us by phone or email. So to get started, we're going to talk about our first solution or access control accessory, the Cypress Wireless Wiegand Reader Extenders. So what this is it's it's a way to connect RFID readers over a wireless connection, so you can use it where cable is non-existent or would be cost prohibitive, to install. So you can connect over city roads or streets where it might be impossible to bore a cable underneath that because of what's under the street as far as the city infrastructure is concerned. You can avoid tearing up parking lots or lawns to put a cable in. Or you can connect readers in common areas and residential sites like an apartment complex or maybe like a golf club. If they have an outbuilding there that they want access to for club members or for residents, we can connect readers there. You can also use it to overcome damaged conduit or limited cables or conductors in the cable. So instead of if a cable fails or conduit fails, you don't have to go in there and rebuild it. So this is what you would see at a typical access control installation. You'll have your door with your card reader and your door position sensor, Rex, and the door strike. And all of those things connect back to the control panel over different conductors. So you might have 10 or more conductors connecting all of those devices at the door back to the access control panel. But our SUPREX reader extenders, we have wireless version, which we'll be focusing mostly on today, and we also have our wired versions, which we'll be touching on a little bit. But so these take all those connections and then get them back over to the panel using a wireless connection or just a single wired connection. So here is the wireless model. It's the SPX-5631, which is our standard range model, which has a 1 mile line of sight range. And then we also have our long range model, which is the SPX-5641, which has a 2 mile line of sight range. And so these are sold as a pair. And so they have the I/O and everything on each side. For passing the data back and forth, you can support up to 248 bits of data So it doesn't matter what the card format is, as long as it's Wiegand data, we can pass it along. And then we also have support for keypad readers if that's something you encounter at the site. For the I/O, we have the four relays on each unit, typically used as dry contacts. Those can be used for monitoring a rec switch or activating a door strike. And we also have the LED I/O, like this is like a digital I/O channel. So the Suprex pairs, the wireless pairs, are paired at the factory, and they're ready to go out of the box. But they can also be paired in the field. So if for some reason one unit is damaged and inoperable, then you can purchase a replacement unit and then put that in the field, and then go through a pairing process using dip switches on the boards to pair those on the site. So we also have some accessories for the Suprex wireless extenders. We have our expansion pairs. So if you have like a vehicle gate with an in-out reader, in-out lanes, or if you have a turnstile bank with 3 lanes with readers on each of those, then you can use one wireless connection with some of our expansion pairs to connect all of those readers and I/O back over with just the one wireless link. So you can use up to 7 of those expansion pairs for 8 total readers. They support the same data and I/O that the main extender units do, and then they also they're addressable, and it's just a minor configuration on the main Suprex end to get those paired up and working. We also have a wireless repeater, the RPT-5651, and so this is either to gain additional distance out of the Suprex wireless units or to get around obstacles in the environment. Sometimes you might not have line of sight directly between where you would mount one of the units on the building and where you would mount the unit at the reader end, at the vehicle gate or a perimeter reader. But with this, you can get around extra buildings, foliage like thick trees, or maybe if there's like a main road and there's commonly like trucks parked on that, then you can get around that. So this is a diagram showing how we can connect 3 doors and readers using one SPX-5631 extender with 2 of the expansion modules and connect those all the way back to 3 different Wiegand ports on the panel. So, and as you can see in the diagram, there's the EXPs are also pairs, and so those are also, one side's dropped off of the with a 2-wire connection from the main remote unit, and then on the other side you have the same setup with the central expansion units being dropped off a 2-wire connection from the central. So just to briefly touch on our wired Suprexes, it's the same concept. So it's a pair of units. They're just, instead of a wireless connection, we have models for RS-45 connections. So that's a 2-wire twisted pair connection. And we can go with our SPX-1300 single reader model. We can go up to 2 miles. And with our 7500 multi-reader model, which supports the EXPs, we can go 4,000 feet over that twisted pair cable. And then just a note on that, commonly those can be used on shorter distances, like standard size cable runs, without the twisted pair cable. They can be run on straight cable for the shorter distances. We also have fiber optic connections we have an SPX-7400 for multi-mode, and then an SPX-7410 for single mode. And then we have a IP network connection, so you can connect readers over an existing IP network. And that would be the SPX-7200. So our next product category is OSDP converters, which convert OSDP readers to Wiegand or vice versa. So you can put OSDP on existing systems. You don't have to, swap over everything, including the panel and all that, to OSDP to start taking advantage of the new OSDP hardware. Especially now that a lot of reader manufacturers are supplying readers with both OSDP and Wiegand functionality in the same unit. So we have 3 different types of OSDP converters here. We have, firstly, our OSM-2400, which is our bigger unit, and it connects, it can do both types of conversions. It can connect OSDP readers to Wiegand controllers, or it can connect Wiegand readers to OSDP controllers. and that's just the dip switch option on that unit. But then we also have our smaller units, our OSM CPI, and then our OSM RCI, which are kind of single application versions of that splitter. So we have the the CPI can connect OSDP readers to Wiegand controllers, and then we have the RCI, which can do the Wiegand reader to OSDP systems. So this is good to help customers get onto OSDP. They can take advantage of OSDP, the benefits of it being less conductors, encrypted connections. And then also, we've run into customers that are complying with mandates, either by a corporate mandate, companies switching over to all OSDP, but they aren't able to upgrade all of their access control panels at the moment due to budgetary constraints. Or we've seen it in government bodies, either like local municipalities or like local, like a court system, for example, might say we need all of our readers in our court buildings and jails to be OSDP or encrypted, which is what the OSDP provides. So you can use our converters to help with that mandate.
Jacob, as we're talking about OSDP, a couple different things. One, first, could you explain a little bit more about this protocol, why it came about, the evolution and where it's kind of going? And then also, what would be the advantage of, say, we've got a long range reader that's providing Wiegand output, but we're going into a security system that's looking for OSDP input? What would be the advantage of using the OSM-2400 versus like the OSM RCI?
Yeah, so firstly, if you're unfamiliar with OSDP, it stands for Open Supervised Device Protocol, and it's SIA's new standard for RFID reader interface connections between the reader and the panel. And the standard has been Wiegand for many decades, but Wiegand is a very simple interface. You scan a card at the reader, and data is output to the panel, and that's the end of it. The panel can then verify it and then send an I/O signal back over a wire back to the gate, door, or reader. Activate an LED or buzzer, unlock the door. But as far as the reader is concerned, it sees the card, scans it, and sends data out, and that's that. The reader's job is done there. With with OSDP, it's on a RS-45 two-wire connection, and OSDP is the protocol on the RS-45 two-wire connection interface. And so now the panel and the reader can talk back and forth, and a lot of those I/O wires, such as like the reader buzzer and reader LED, are now I/O messages that the panel can then send to the reader over the same data communication lines. Additionally, the OSDP protocol supports an encrypted mode, so now your data can be encrypted rather than just kind of being out in the open there. And then as far as the second question, why might you use the 2400 over the RCI for those long range reader applications? The OSM 2400 has a bit more I/O capacity than this RCI does, and I also believe some more LED options, LED I/O options. So the 2400 has a relay output that can be used, and then that application, yeah, it would be an output because we are doing the it's a PD, and that it's basically a reader in that situation. So you could have the panel tell the 2400 to activate an output to open the gate or not, right on the board itself. And then the LED I/O is a little bit different too for more expansive options if you have multiple colors, like a red and green input.
Excellent. Thank you
Oh, sorry. It also has dip switches on there, so you can configure some of the OSDP settings directly on the unit with dip switches rather than having to connect a OSDP controller to configure those options.
Thank you for explaining that a little bit more. We are seeing more demand and more questions about OSDP. A lot of that is coming from larger security integrators or projects where they're looking for that next level of security beyond Wiegand. So thank you for bringing that up. And can you also confirm what we've been talking about so far in your products? Those are all 8 to 16 volt DC. Is that correct?
Yeah, our products are generally 12 volt DC powered products. And it's yeah, 8 to 16 volts is just the input range, but it's 12 volts typical, and then it's 300 milliamps or less uh, current draw requirement. So it's not very big. For a lot of them, you can use power off of the panel, or share power with a reader, depending on where the physical device is located at. So, any other questions, Butch, or are we good to continue?
No, I think let's carry on.
All right. Yeah, so we also have, in addition to our OSDP converters, we also have tools for configuring and troubleshooting OSDP systems. So OSDP is still new. Everyone's learning it. There's some key differences. So OSDP readers need to be have their address set, and also their baud rate or the communication speed to properly communicate back to the panel. And part of each manufacturer's implementation is there's no default address and default baud rate set up in the spec. So everyone is left to figure that out on their own. So some manufacturers' readers are set to default address one, and some manufacturers' panels are set to default address zero. And so you would need to configure the devices as an additional step in order to get them to properly communicate. And so you can take the reader back to the panel and have the panel do it, or perhaps you have some software on like some access control software on your laptop. You could do it that way. But we have a tool for that. That's a universal tool. It's just using the OSDP protocol commands to set those parameters in the readers. And so we have that 21 OTT 2100 ComSet tool that can do that. It's a handheld battery operated tool. So you can keep it in the integrator's tool bag and then bring it out wherever you need it at the reader without having to make an extra trip back to the panel or what have you. Additionally, since OSDP is a protocol and not just discrete signaling wires, troubleshooting it can be difficult because you can't see what's happening between the reader and the panel. And so that's what our OTT 1000 and OTT 1100 allow. It's a software component. The OTT 1000 is a software component, and the OTT 1100 is a hardware component. So the OTT 1000 trace tool software runs on your computer, and then the 1100 is a adapter that can take the OSDP 45 connection and then convert that to USB for the computer connection. And so then the software will display all of the messages between the panel and the readers. So that way you can see exactly what's going on. If it's not communicating, you can see why. You can identify, if it's like a mismatched address or a baud rate issue, or if it's like a specific functionality issue, like an LED isn't turning green when it should. You can see, why that is. And then we also have our OSM hub, which is a cross-point switch for OSDP setup. So if you wanted to create an OSDP test environment at your facility, then this would be a way you can easily connect and change that OSDP setup without having to wire and rewire or disconnect every device every time you need to make a small change. So the next we're going to be talking about our handheld RFID readers. So these are used for portable credential verification. We sell them in kits, and they're used for these applications primarily, but they are, I think, a product with a very wide scope. So we use them a lot at perimeter gates, so you can check the IDs of pedestrians or vehicles that are approaching the gate. We use them to establish muster points, so you can add the muster points at a site without having to trench cable or install like a permanent fixed mounted reader. We've also seen them used at temporary checkpoints, such as construction sites, or for at like a turnstile bank at a production factory where there's a shift change and there's hundreds or thousands of people coming through that turnstile bank at once. Then the operators can then open up additional lanes with the handheld reader, or for auxiliary purposes, like if you have like an event and you need like overflow parking, you can use that to check the IDs of people going into the overflow lot where you don't have an RFID reader there normally. Um, or for like events and trainings, if you have a corporate training at an office, then you can have the team that's doing the training set up this handheld reader in the training room, have everyone scan their ID so that way they can the team can report everyone who attended the training. Or at university campuses, if they have events around campus, they want to track how many students attended each event. They can use the handheld for that. So just to kind of get into what is it, so we have the handheld there on the left, and so a guard or security officer will carry that around. They can ask individuals to present their card to it. We have an encrypted wireless communication back to our base unit, which then connects to the access control panel. Oops. Sorry, I thought there was a little bit more on that. Okay, but yeah, just to say a little bit more on that. So they're sold in kits. So we have a couple different types of kits. We have single reader kits. We have two reader kits. The reader shown on the page here has a in and out button on it, and so that can be used as a single reader if you have a guard at a vehicle gate with in and out lanes. You can have a single guard that can then switch between those two modes to, track ingress, people coming in with their credentials or people leaving their credentials, and that'll go to two different outputs back to the access control system. And so, or software integration that needs to be made. As far as the access control system is concerned, it's just seeing another Wiegand reader. So, um, there's nothing that has to be done there that's extra or special. There's little compatibility issues because of that, because if your system supports a Wiegand reader, then it'll connect to this.
Jacob, can you explain a little bit what is the read distance from the handheld to the credential? How far can we communicate the data from the handheld to the central unit?
Yes. So with just the handheld to the base, we advertise a 500-foot line of sight range in that operating area, and that's kind of more like that's like a radius, or at least in like a radius around 180 degrees.
And as far as the handheld to the credential, what type of range do we see there?
Okay, sorry, just to repeat what I said, on the read range from the credential to the handheld, it depends on the credential technology, but for some it's like, you have to get pretty close, like a third of an inch off the face of it, or for others it can be up to 3 inches depending on like if it's a Prox card or an iClass card or a MyFair card.
That was going to be one of my next questions. As far as the format of the credential, you can basically support any format that's in that credential to communicate it from your handheld to the base unit.
Yeah, it depends, but widely speaking, it's pretty open. And then yeah, we support the 125 kilohertz proximity cards, the 13.56 megahertz smart cards like iClass, COS, MyFair Classic, MyFair DesFire.
Perfect.
And then I wanted to also say we do offer repeaters if you need to get around obstacles in the environment, or if you just need to extend that distance between the handheld reader and the base unit.
Yeah, this is a great solution, like you say, for mustering or for, overflow for events. Um, just keeping track of employees for those temporary places where you may have work that moves from one location to another. So,
Mhm.
um, great product. Thank you for sharing that with us.
My pleasure. So next we're going to move on to our USB data wedge. So this is a product that you can connect a reader to on one end on that terminal block, and then on the USB side there you can plug it into a computer, and then you can display the credential data on the computer. Um, so you can use that to just find out, maybe if you are unsure of what card you have, you can have that output the data for you, and just see what it is. Or you can use it to create credential databases after a site takeover if that's not available for you. Or you can create custom enrollment solutions with specialty readers. There are off-the-shelf enrollment readers, but some customers have like MyFair DesFire cards with custom keys that are specific to that end user. And so they have, their own readers which have the key to read those cards, but you can't, just get an off-the-shelf solution. So if you pair one of those existing readers or one of those customer readers with our wedge, then you can create an enrollment solution at a desk, like a secretary's desk, or your desk, whoever's in charge of entering those credentials into the system. So the wedge does support Wiegand and OSDP readers. And then we also have a tool available on our website where you can create a custom configuration file for the device to specify different credential formats and then how that data is output. So it emulates, we have two versions. The most popular version emulates a USB keyboard. And so it's just displaying the data on a computer anywhere you can type it. So if you're in like a notepad window or like a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet, you can have the data typed there. If you know what format you're using, you can configure the wedge to output the facility code, and then maybe do like a tab or another, control key in the spreadsheet, and then also, output the card number and then hit the enter key to go to a new line. So it's very configurable on that side. And then recently we also have another version which connects via USB serial connection. So it's not a keyboard emulator, but it's, connects to a COM port on the computer. And so that can be used if you have an application that you might want to like grab that data and use that inside an internal application there.
Very powerful, inexpensive tool. Great thing to have in your tool bag when you're out in the field.
Mhm. Yeah, and here's just a simple diagram showing how it just, you have your card reader, go to the wedge, and then go to the computer. And then we've also had customers use this for troubleshooting. And if they have a particularly long cable run, or they have a line chain of devices and they're not getting their card data out properly, or not at all, then they've used the wedge to kind of step through those connections and kind of see like, okay, well, where's the data even getting to, right? Am I getting out of the reader? Fine. Okay. And then I move on to the next part. And then it's like, okay, are we getting data out here? Great. And then they can move on to the panel and see like at the panel location, am I getting the data? And is it maybe a panel issue or is it, something in between? So we're moving on to our Wiegand data splitters. We have two different types of these. This first one is a passive splitter. So we have the OPTW 100, which is really just a passive device. It's really an optical isolator for Wiegand devices. And so what that allows you to do is you can use it to connect a single reader to two controllers and send that credential data to both panels. Or you can connect two readers down to one controller, one Wiegand port. Um, and then that's commonly used for in-out readers where the customer is not concerned about tracking in and out separately, or at a high-low vehicle gate setup where you have the high reader and the low reader for different types of vehicles. And in that case, you're really not concerned about tracking the different like where the data came from specifically, just that it needs to get back to one panel. And so that can be used to save space on your panel. Since you're able to connect both readers back to one port, you can connect if you have multiple truck gates, for example, then you can connect all those on maybe the same panel instead of having to have multiple panels out there. You can also use it to eliminate ground potential issues or voltage issues between different Wiegand readers. Um, so, a lot of times in a perfect environment, you can just parallel Wiegand uh, reader outputs together back to one port, and without anything else. But when we get to sites, there can be things powered on different electrical circuits, and then between those circuits, there can be ground issues or voltage issues, and that's what the OPTW 100 will eliminate in those circumstances. And then here's a diagram just showing those different connections back and forth. So we've got our two readers back to one panel, our one reader to two different panels, and then you can also use it if you have those electrical issues specifically, you can use it just to connect the one reader back to one panel straight through. Next, we have our intelligent data splitter. So we have, for multi-tenant commercial spaces, developed an intelligent splitter that connects a single reader to two controllers. And really what it's for is to avoid issues at those multi-tenant commercial spaces where you have a landlord and they have their own access control system, and then you have a tenant and they bring in their own access control system. And so they want to avoid a couple things. They want to avoid putting two readers on the outside door. So it's just not aesthetically pleasing. And then they also want to avoid issues where if you have a reader going to both systems, then one system's going to grant access to the door, and the other system's going to say that's not a card not recognized or an invalid card format, and pop up as an error. And so we can avoid that with the intelligent splitter. So we work with the customer to create a custom credential configuration, which we can define the credentials for the landlord system and then define the system or credentials for the tenant system. And then um, when the card data comes to the OPTS splitter, it'll go out to the appropriate system, out one port or the other, but not both. And we can specify those credentials by their credential format and also by facility code if necessary. So if both systems are using like the same 26-bit credentials, for example, then we can list those facility codes. And then this does require a one-time engineering fee just to create that custom credential configuration. But that's just a one-time thing, and that includes a single unit. It's usually the first unit we use for testing. And then after that, those same units with that same configuration are available for just a unit cost. And then another thing on just the splitters, we also have OSDP versions of these splitters. So if you run into that with OSDP equipment, then we have a solution for that as well. So here's a diagram just showing the panel or the reader sending data to the OPTS and then it going out to panel 1 or panel 2.
Jacob, what's the typical turnaround time on a custom
Yeah, our
process
typical lead
solution?
time is 2 weeks. We can do it quicker than that. I mean, we just, we need two things primarily, right? We need the PO, and then we also need the credential configuration information. So I need like the cards being used with each panel. So once we work that out, then it's typically a 2-week lead time or sooner. So lastly, we wanted to talk about Farpoint readers and credentials. Cypress is a reseller of the Farpoint products. So they have a full range of RFID credentials and RFID readers. So their main categories here are the Connect readers. Those are their mobile ready readers. They have smart card versions and proximity versions of that. And those have keypad variants as well. And then they also have their pyramid proximity readers and credentials, which are the 125 kilohertz only. And those have been around for a long time and they're, very cost effective. And then they also have something new, which I don't believe everyone has, which is their Ranger long range receivers and transmitters, which are those beige boxes on the left side of that product image there. And what that is you can set up one of those boxes in an area. It has a 200-foot range with the receiver, or sorry, with the transmitter, which are those key fob looking things. And then you press a button on the key fob. There's a 2-button or 4-button key fob, and then you press a button, it'll send your credential data back to the receiver and output that to the panel. But there's 4 buttons, so you have 4 different outputs. So you can have your one credential control 4 different access points with just that one transmitter. So you could have this out at like a parking lot, and you could press button 1 to open the vehicle gate. You could then drive your car in and then get out and then go press button 2 as you walk to the front entrance, or if there's like a side entrance, you could press button 3 for that side entrance, all with just the one receiver and transmitter. And then so that's the end of our presentation. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, my contact information is there. Again, I'm Jacob Leroy. And then we also have Tony Wagner, who is our inside sales representative who can also assist with any sales questions. And then also CPSG is happy to help as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jacob. Want to see, before we do close this up, are there any questions out there? Any additional questions, any comments? And while we're waiting for that, just keep in mind that Cypress does have a lot of off-the-shelf products, but they really have an expertise in making custom solutions. So if you're looking for a solution, you think that, Cypress has something that's similar, not quite right, let's talk about it. And, they've got some very intelligent people over there and are capable, like I say, of putting together custom solutions. So keep that in mind. I don't see any other questions popping up here. So again, thank you, Jacob. Anybody has any questions, if you want to get a recording from this webinar today, let us know. And we appreciate all of you joining us today. And thank you, Jacob. Have a
You're
great
welcome.
day.
Thank you.